Hello everyone and welcome back to Timberborn. This is episode 12 of the Road to 1000 Beavers. In the last episode we started working on expanding our farm over here. As you can see, we're trying to make some more green space so we can continue to plant some potatoes, since we recently ran out of potatoes and ended up having a biofuel shortage. And considering we have 132 bots, that is not something that we want to have happen. So we're going to continue working on that. We'll probably end up setting up another of the dirt excavators. We have 2 in this district, but we have room for another one. And then we recently set up a second dirt excavator in our second district, Beaverland Hills, since these guys are going to be using a lot of dirt over here. And then also we have quite a big project set up over here, since we want to set up some more storage facilities. And then we also have a lot of dirt we want to place over here so we can continue to plant some trees in this area. But as I realized in the last episode, we can actually go ahead and remove some of the dirt blocks underneath. That way we don't need to use quite as many to fill this whole area. And before we get into this episode, I just want to say thank you to you guys for supporting the most recent Megabuild. I have received a lot of positive comments from that. And if you haven't seen it already, go ahead and check it out. There will be a link in the description. And if you could, be sure to like and comment on that video and share it with a friend. But in today's episode, we're going to go ahead and start beautifying this colony a little bit. We'll try and get rid of some of the stuff that we don't need, like some of these water pumps, since we don't need these ones here. We ended up setting up the foundation for a few more water pumps over here. And so right off the bat, let's go ahead and remove these ones. And then we can also work on getting rid of some of these sumps over here. And so one thing I do want to do in order to make this a little bit more standardized is straighten out the channel through here. So we can go ahead and start placing some dirt blocks along this area. And then we'll go ahead and try and extend it all the way through here. And then probably on this side as well. We do have a fair amount of wood, so we can go ahead and unmark these trees to be planted. And then eventually, once the trees are chopped down, which we actually are going to have to mark these ones to be chopped down, but we can go ahead and place some dirt blocks over in this area as well. But as they chop all these trees down, we need to make sure we have some more areas that we can plant even more trees. And honestly, this whole pool over here isn't really working super well, since there's a fair amount of flooding when the water returns, and then it overtops a little bit. So we're going to try and change this system just a hair. We'll probably make some smaller little 3x3 grids and then do something similar to what we've done over here with the fluid dump and then a small area to dump the water. And then in the last episode we did install this bad water pump, since as you can see there's a little bit of bad water that's been pooling up over here. Since there isn't an outfall and there is some bad water that will occasionally get through here at the end of a bad tide, and then it'll slowly make its way all the way into here and then through this area. It looks like we have a fair amount of beavers that are sitting around not doing anything. In fact, we have a lot of beavers who are sitting around. Seems like we're a little bit short on dirt, unfortunately. And then what are we also short on? It looks like gears are a little bit lacking. Let's try and figure out how we can expand our production line in the second district. You know what we could do is build some production on top of these water wheels here. We'll just need to figure out if we have enough overhangs. Unfortunately, it is not quite high enough, so we'll have to set up some platforms first. And so now the beavers should have something to work on over here. Looks like they can reach a fair amount of it even from over in this area. And then we'll be able to transfer the power shafts vertically and start setting up some buildings up here. And then we have experienced this bad water over here that is backed up a little bit. I think that was during a bad tide when the bad water was coming through here. So let's go ahead and work on opening this channel just a little bit. Looks like we're actually running a little bit low on treated planks. We use those. In the mine, I believe it is 1 treated plank to 5 scrap metal. We have a good amount of scrap metal, not quite as much as I was hoping. Overall, we're just under 500. And so it doesn't look like the pine resin is the limiting factor. We have a fair amount of planks as well. So it's probably just the fact that we only have 1 of these wood workshops set up. Once we get all of these overhangs constructed, we can look at adding in some of those buildings up top. And then we'll probably want to rearrange where these ones are located as well. We do have this part irrigated. I am thinking we should probably level some of the hill over here, and then we can start setting up some farmhouses, and then probably also expand the water features in this direction. And it looks like we've made a lot of progress over here. We have 1 more dirt block to place down, so we'll go ahead and get that sorted out. But overall things are looking pretty good. We can probably go ahead and expand some of these islands as well. And then we can also go ahead and set up another zip line and connect it into this one. In terms of efficiency, let's go ahead and high prioritize this, which should make all of this go a little bit faster. And then we can go ahead and place some beehives down over here and get some potatoes planted. And so they have chopped down nearly all the trees over here. There's just a few more that need to grow up, so we can go ahead and place some dynamite down. And thankfully, it looks like the irrigation has spread all the way to the back still. I was a little worried with placing the dirt blocks here that it wouldn't reach quite far enough. But now we can go ahead and remove all of these levees right here, and then place down some dirt blocks. And the bad tide has officially started, 7 days long. Looks like these are closing up pretty quickly, which is excellent. And now these have opened up. There is a little bit of overtopping, unfortunately. Hopefully that should sort itself out here. A little bit of a rocky start. Maybe we should go ahead and work on expanding this over here, just to make it one width wider. And even before we cut down some of these maple trees, I know we were running a little bit short on maple syrup, and that is resulting in us not being able to make quite enough catalyst. So we're running short on that. Let's go ahead and get some trees planted over here. But the real question is, how do I want to plant them? And since I imagine we'll have quite a few dirt projects going on, let's get a third dirt excavator set up over here. And then taking a look back in the second district, they have made a fair amount of progress over here. Looks like we are running a little bit short on planks and metal blocks. Gears, we don't have a whole lot. And are we actually out of wood? Oh my goodness, we somehow ran out of wood. Well, I say somehow. It's definitely in the platforms that we built over there. So let's get another zipline station set up, and then we can also set up a second of the foresters. And then we can continue to plant some oak trees over here. And then we can get another zipline station set up over here and have this one connected in. So we'll see if detonating the dynamite here ended up changing anything. You can see the bad water is already starting to overtop, and in fact it is overtopping over here. So it might have to do more with everything in this area. We'll probably end up moving these bad water pumps soon. And oh my gosh, they have built so much. And so the gravity batteries are just completely depleted at this point. These windmills are the only thing providing power. We do have a fair amount of some elevation over here. So let's go ahead and try getting some gravity batteries set up on this cliffside. We'll need to place a lot of dynamite down to lower this, but this seems like a pretty good spot to place it. So first we can go ahead and remove all of these, since we have a whopping 51,000 science, and we don't need any beavers hopping into these inventors' huts. And even though we do want to set up these gravity batteries, I want to make it so they're not quite as big of an eyesore as they could be. So we'll go ahead and try and hide them. And so now we're having a lot more potatoes planted. You can see the ones that were planted earlier are growing up. And we're starting to have a good amount of reserves, which is excellent news. And we've been grilling a fair amount of potatoes as well, almost 900. But we just ran out of power, unfortunately. And it looks like we have plenty of power in the second district. They have almost 6,000 that they're producing, whereas they only need about 2,000. I would like to get another dirt excavator constructed. Unfortunately, we're still running pretty low on gears, as well as treater planks and metal blocks. And in order to connect in any buildings that require power on this side, we could always go around this direction. But since I want to make all of these buildings that are 4 deep, it's going to take quite a while for them to construct them all the way over here. And I want to get some more lumber mills and gear workshops set up over here first. So let's see if we can get some power shafts going up through this way. It looks like we will need to tunnel in this direction, and then we can go up from here. In fact, we should be able to do one tunnel and then one dynamite, and then that should actually get us all the way up. And at this point we can go ahead and detonate all this dynamite, although we do need to wait for these last 3 to be placed down, and then also continuing placing some more down. The water is running pretty low over here. You can see that the water pumpers are working hard, but we need to figure out another way that we can go ahead and irrigate this land, since we're actually drying up our crops over here, and these carrots are actually going to probably die before the bad tide is finished. The sunflowers might survive, but overall this is not where we want to have our crops. We do have the tunnel going up over this way, and so then once they can reach the backside, then we can go ahead and get another 3x3 grid set up over here. Overall, the water levels have dropped significantly, and that's starting to affect our crops over here as well. So big picture, we do need to come up with a better irrigation solution, since we have a lot of surface area that allows for evaporation, and then we're also crossing the water production, or I should say water collection system, with the irrigation system. And during a drought or bad tide, that just can't work. So let's go ahead and get a couple farmhouses set up over here, and we'll have them start planting some potatoes right off the bat. And it looks like the last few trees were chopped down, so let's go ahead and place some dynamite over here. We can go ahead and wait for the water to return and fill this area up before detonating any of this. But on the bright side, the bad tide is over, and so we're in the next wet season now, beginning cycle 18. And it looks like they actually ended up covering a good chunk of this so far. And then as we start shifting the channel over to this side a little bit more, we can go ahead and start lowering this area as well. And so we'll basically make it a straight shot going in this direction. We can also start leveling this area off a little bit, so we'll go ahead and remove some of these lumberjack flags temporarily. And it looks like the water is starting to go around the helix, so the water has basically stopped flowing down here for now. And we have managed to set up a bunch of gravity batteries so far. We are in the process of lowering some of the area underneath there. But during this next wet season, the gravity batteries will be recharging, and then we can go ahead and place some more dynamite underneath. I want to go ahead and get a second row of gravity batteries all the way along here. But we'll have to figure out how we can actually make that happen with all of this area that needs dynamite to be placed down. And then still let the beavers actually access all of this. We have a lot of bots sitting around, so let's go ahead and figure out some other projects that they can work on. And part of the water is going into here, it seems. So the flow is taking a bit longer to go all the way through as well. Let's go ahead and unsync this one to be synchronized with adjacent sluices. And then we can close these two over here. Hopefully this should encourage a little bit more of the flow to go through this system, since we are in desperate need of water down here. Ooh, this is looking nasty over here. I think we gotta move the bad water pump in this area. We are finally ready to detonate all this dynamite. I was hoping that they get a farmhouse constructed earlier, but we'll have to go ahead and bump that up on the priority list. And now we have a lot more green space so we can continue to plant some crops. We have sunflowers and potatoes so far. We'll go ahead and get some carrots planted. Looks like they were able to plant a fair amount of the trees over here, and we're in the process of expanding our tree planting zone. We now have a lumberjack flag that can chop some of these remaining dead trees, and then we can place the last piece of dynamite over here as well. And you can see the water has returned. It's going to be flowing all the way over here, which means that hopefully soon it'll be going through this system as well. And then we can finally detonate these pieces of dynamite. Since we have so much science, we can probably go ahead and pause a couple of these observatories and help lower the demand for power just a little bit. We're doing pretty good on dirt in this district. We have 1.4 thousand. One thing I do want to do is fill in some of the gaps over here, and then try and reduce the spread of the bad water effects when the bad tides come through, which will also mean getting some contamination barriers unlocked. But first we can go ahead and start with placing down some dirt blocks. And then I was also wanting to expand the channel width a little bit, so we'll go ahead and start at the sluices. And the water has finally returned, so let's go ahead and detonate the dynamite over here. And it looks like we're almost maxed out on logs in this district. Hopefully we have some more in the other district as well. Ooh, we only have 12. How is that possible? I thought we should be transporting stuff over here. We have it set to import always. Let's go ahead and switch both of those. And then we can bump that up to, let's go to 10%. And then we can switch all the foods to import as needed and not import always. And then bump those thresholds up a little bit as well. Looks like these guys are immediately getting some more wood. We're up to almost 70 as opposed to 12. So hopefully that'll help them get some of these buildings constructed. Looks like they did end up managing to construct these buildings right here. Now let's go ahead and get some power shafts set up after I detonate this. And then in terms of food, it looks like we're doing pretty good. We are running pretty low on carrots overall. And then grilled spatterdock is not doing too hot either. Okay, so a quick recap on all the projects we have going on. Looks like the beavers have almost finished constructing the double floodgates over here. We'll just need to go ahead and detonate this, and then we can expand it all the way across here. We have some more dirt blocks that the beavers are placing down so we can expand our farm, and then we can get some more carrots planted. At some point, I do probably want to make part of this area somewhere that we can get some aquatic farmhouses set up, since it is a perfect depth, although we might want to switch it so that we're not having water from here directly feed the area. We might actually have it blocked off and then have some fluid dumps set so that they can actually irrigate the area. And that will help increase our spatter dock, but that is a project for another time since we have plenty more that we're working on. This beaver is literally placing the last piece of dynamite, so we can go ahead and detonate this now. And then we can go ahead and place a lot more trees down, since this guy can reach all the way over here. And then the beavers did finish placing down the dirt blocks over here, so now we can go ahead and unlock the contamination barrier for 400 science. And then let's go ahead and place it down all the way around the perimeter. And then we did finish building all of these lumber mills and gear workshops. We need to go ahead and connect this last one in. But now we're actually really short on beavers. We don't have enough workers in this district, which means we need to get some more houses set up. And so once we get some of these constructed, then we should be able to get some more beavers. And let's actually go ahead and figure out what jobs we have paused right now. Or I should say which jobs are vacant. And obviously these 3 builders' huts are empty since they're the lowest priority. We can also go ahead and lower prioritize some of these, which will start having some beavers go to other jobs. And so I think that's all the projects that we have going on. And that's also where we're going to wrap up today's episode. This episode is a little bit shorter, and I apologize for only one episode this week. Life is getting pretty busy, and I'm actually going to be moving in this next month, and so I'm not going to be able to upload quite as much content as I would like to, but this is going to be temporary. I'm not going to be taking any big hiatuses this summer, and so I appreciate your guys' patience and support. And so if you haven't already, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and then leave a comment on what you're looking forward to most in this series. I have a couple big projects that I want to work on, and I'm looking forward to them, and one of them might involve a third colony. And with that, we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.